If wars had a currency, it wouldn't just be bullets or tanks, it would be minerals. This week, a major shift happened in the Ukraine war narrative, and not on the battleground, but in the Washington, where both Ukraine and United States of America signed a long-delayed critical minerals deal. It's been called a new kind of support, one that blends economics, politics, and strategy into a single signed document. So let's break this down. Question 1. What's this deal all about? Under the agreement, the United States will get access to Ukraine's rare earth minerals, especially for everything from smartphones to missiles, in exchange for setting up a reconstruction investment fund in Ukraine itself. Now, try to understand that both countries will hold equal voting right over the fund, and Ukraine will retain full control over its natural resources, including the mining infrastructure and subsoil. That's a big deal, especially since these minerals have been largely untapped because of the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia. But there is more. Trump's administration had earlier demonstrated and demanded that Ukraine quote unquote repay the billions of dollars in military aid sent during the Biden years. But Kiev rejected that idea. Now, under this new deal, Ukraine will not owe any debt to the US for past military assistance. In return, Washington gets long-term economic partnership and a potential share in Ukraine's future mineral boom. Now, you might be wondering why now and what's Trump's real agenda? This is a big question. This deal comes after months of tensions between President Trump and President Zelensky, and even a freeze on US military aid to Ukraine. President Trump has criticized the blank check approach of the Biden era and made it very clear that he wanted something in return, quote unquote. Now, this deal is being positioned as that something. Trump's team is selling it to the American public, American people, as a win-win situation. The US gets access to billions in mineral wealth, and Ukraine gets long-term involvement and investment, possibly worth 175 billion in coming years. But there is a twist. There is always a twist. Trump didn't get the 500 billion access he wanted. Ukraine negotiated down and kept ownership of all its resources. So while the US can help develop the profit from these resources, ownership stays with Kiev. But the question is, what exactly is in Ukraine's soil? Why is Trump so interested in it? Think lithium, cobalt, graphite, the stuff that powers electric cars, satellites, and advanced weapons. Ukraine has significant untapped resources, reserves of rare earth elements. Add to that oil and gas potential, and you're looking at one of Europe's most resource-rich countries, if it can stabilize. The deal includes funding not just for mineral projects, but also for oil, gas, and related infrastructure. And all profits for the first decade will be reinvested directly into Ukraine, though this part might be formalized later through a supplementary agreement. So this is still in question. Interestingly, this agreement changed the language of the United States of America towards Russia. This is interesting to note. The tone of US statement was unusually tough on Russia. It referred to Russia's full-scale invasion, a phrase Trump had often avoided in favor of calling it a conflict. And the Treasury made it clear no person or country that aided Russia will benefit from Ukraine's reconstruction, a not so subtle warning to Moscow and perhaps China as well. But what's the catch in this whole US-Ukraine minerals deal? This is very important to know. While the deal opens the door for future US military aid, including air defense systems, there is still no firm security guarantee. This is something Ukraine's president wanted. Trump remains cautious about long-term military entanglements, meaning the US can technically walk away anytime it finds soothing. So while this deal strengthens economic ties, Ukraine's security still lacks the kind of hard assurances Kiev and President Zelensky wants. And what about Europe? There were fears that this agreement might hurt Ukraine's chances of joining the European Union, its ambition of joining the European Union, especially if it gave too much priority to the United States. However, the deal clearly says it won't interfere with Ukraine's EU ambitions. And if needed, the US agrees to renegotiate in good faith as well. That is a smart move. It keeps doors open on both sides of the Atlantic for both the countries, Ukraine as well as USA. So the bottom line here is that in the middle of a war, Ukraine just signed a deal that secures its minerals, attracts American investment, and opens the door to rebuilding without giving up its sovereignty. For the US, it's a way to profit, stay entangled, engaged, and still pull back military. It's not a peace treaty, but it might just be the blueprint for the next phase of this war.